Good morning and welcome and congratulations to everybody who came out on Daylight Savings Sunday. So you had an hour less sleep than you normally do. Today's going to be a little bit different from our usual Sundays. Geshe Gelik and Geshe Sangpo are both out of town, so we're doing a different program. And as it happens, today is International Women's Day. So I'm going to be leading this morning, and we'll be talking a little bit about women in Buddhism, past and present. But so let's start. Those of you who would like to can join me in paying homage to the Buddhas with 3 prostrations. It's not a requirement, so if you're not comfortable with that, you can just wait until that finishes. And we'll start with announcements. First of all, with tomorrow is Monlam Chenmo, which is the final day of the 2-week prayer festival. So we're going to mark that, and it's a Buddha Holy Day, merit multiplying day. So the karmic effects of anything you do is extra powerful. We'll have, at noon tomorrow, we'll have a group reading of the Golden Light Sutra here in the Kadampa. And this is kind of a fun thing to do. They do this in the monastery, excuse me, where we take, say there's 12 pages and we have 12 people here. Everybody takes a page and reads it all together out loud all at the same time. And it's really a lot of fun. And it's also, even if you're not conscious of it, you're hearing all the words of the sutra, so that's a powerful thing. And then right after that, roughly at about 12:30, we'll have a medicine Buddha puja. Also want to let you know about 2 visiting teachers we have coming later this year. In the first 2 weeks of June, back to back, we have first Venerable Robina Curtin, who will be here the 1st through the 7th. And then the following week, we'll have Don Hendrick here again. So put that on your calendar and plan to come. And it looks like Elise has an announcement.
I'm Elise. I'm the outreach coordinator here. And by the way, those 2 special visitors that she was talking about, they're really incredibly awesome. So you've never heard them. I really encourage you to look them up and come and hear them. So first thing, I want to thank you all so much for your generosity. I made the final delivery for our food drive, and we collected a total of 652 pounds, which is equal to 543 meals, which is pretty awesome for a small center like ours. So thank you so much. This feeds souls as well as bodies, so thank you. So for the Interfaith Care of Creation of the Triangle, they are going to be having a meeting about environmental justice. If you're worried about who's going to suffer during the age of climate change, go and listen to this, featuring Ryan Emanuel. He's actually Native American and very renowned in the Native American community. And I heard he's really wonderful. That's going to be Tuesday, March 24th. So if you're concerned about climate change, that's a really good thing to attend. And finally, my papers are sticking together, sorry. We have saved the date. Saturday, April the 18th, we're going to have our annual Habitat Interfaith Build Day. And no experience is needed. If you have no skills, you can hand over tools or sweep the floor. If you've got skills, they can use them. And it's wonderful fun. You will see a little picture. It was attended last year, and it's just a wonderful experience. You get to do something, you see the results of what you're doing, helping people have a nice home. You meet people from other communities and cultures, and it's great fun. So thank you all. And these flyers are all by the back door if you want to take pictures of them. And the information will eventually be on our website as well.
Hi everyone, I have two announcements. My name is Jason. Karen and I are starting a book club. I made an announcement last week, but if you won't hear, you get to. I'm just going to remind you to till we start it. It's March 20th. It's Friday, March 20th. It's at 7 p.m. at Aladdin's. And our first book is the Book of Joy, and we're going to have 5 copies in next week. We don't have any in this week, so if you know you're going to be attending, let us know. That way we can order more books. So we'll have them in. And what did we decide? How many pages for the?
The first 80 is divided into 3 sections, so if you have time to read the first third, that's great. If you don't, just come.
Yeah.
We're going to work on the book the first meeting, but also the next month to give people, it's a big book, give people plenty of time.
Yeah.
So you can just repeat that.
Yeah, so the first 80. So we asked for, when you come for that first Friday, that you have the first 80 pages read. If you don't still come, that's fantastic. And then the next month, we'll finish discussing it. So in April, we'll finish discussing it, and we'll vote on which book we read next. And it should be a good event. We're going to meet at Aladdin's at North Hills. They have vegetarian food. They have every kind of food you can think of. It's very quiet. It's a nice restaurant. So if you know you're going to come, let us know, and we can order more books. Like I said, we're going to have 5 books in next week, but they may sell out pretty quick, so just let us know. The other announcement is about the Dharma classes that we hold here. It says, Dharma classes, did you know you can give to Dharma classes? Why, you might ask? If we engage now, we ensure the future. Dharma classes enrich our mind by giving us the tools we need to navigate our daily life. Reading the Dharma on our own is beneficial, yet learning in a class setting adds an important element to our spiritual growth. While our classes are offered on a donation basis, kind generosity in the past made it possible for our classes today, and your gift will assure Dharma classes are available in the future. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, the Dharma was the friend who did not desert me in the times of need. As always, we thank you for your inspired generosity. Okay. Any questions about either two? For the book club is March 20th. Friday, March 20th at 7 p.m. at Aladdin's. All right, thank you.
Turn off the mic. Sorry. I'm not used to Chris, this is too loud. I'm not used to wearing a mic. And I forgot to mention during the announcements that we will have a newcomer Q&A session after the session this morning, and Chris Baranski, our wonderful media guy, will be meeting with you if anybody wants to stay, and we'll meet in the back of the Kadampa. So first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. You can see we have a little bit different program than usual because our resident teachers are both out of town. I'm Donna Seese. I'm the spiritual program coordinator for Kadampa Center, and it happens that today is International Women's Day, so we're going to talk a little bit about women in Buddhism, past and present. But first of all, let's just take a minute or two to greet each other, say hello to old friends and make some new ones. I know we've got some visitors here today from Athens Drive High School, so just take a minute or two to get acquainted.
about this is less time to worry about.
Yeah, that's what oops. Okay. Let's start with our morning prayers. So if you have the white binder, it's on the page with all the prayers. And in the gold prayer book, we'll start on page 34. And we'll recite the Shakyamuni Buddha mantra 3 times, followed by the Medicine Buddha stanza and mantra and the 4 immeasurables. And then we'll flip to page 37 and say the 4 immeasurables in Tibetan, followed by Chenrezig's mantra 8 times and Green Tara mantra 7 times. Taya cha mune mune maha munaye soha. Taya ta mune mune maha munaye soha. Taya ta mune mune maha munaye soha. Bhagawan, with equal compassion for all, whose name, when merely heard, dispels the suffering of the lower realms, dispeller of disease and the 3 poisons, I prostrate to Medicine Buddha, lapis light. Teata bekanse, bekanse, maha bekanse, bekanse, Raja samud gate soha. Teata bekanse, bekanse, maha bekanse, bekanse, Raja samud gate soha. Teata bekanse, bekanse, maha bekanse, bekanse, Raja samud gate soha. Teata bekanse, bekanse, maha bekanse, bekanse, Raja samud gate soha. Teata bekanse, bekanse, maha bekanse, bekanse, Raja samud gate soha. Om bekanse, bekanse, maha bekanse, bekanse, Raja samud gate soha. Teata bekanse, bekanse, maha bekanse, bekanse, Raja samud gate soha. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Now on page 37, the 4 immeasurables. Sim chen tom che de wa dong de wei gyu dong den par gyur chik dug ngal dong dug ngal gi gyu dong drel war gyur chik dug ngal me pe de wa dong mi drel war gyur chik nye ring chog dong ni dong drel wei tong nyam la ne par gyur chik. Om mani padme hum, om mani padme hum, om mani padme hum, om mani padme hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. 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 Isn't it wonderful how much joy just a little feather can give? That's great. Children can be dismissed to their classes. Thank you.
This backpack is super heavy.
Well, you're a tough guy then.
These socks are
Okay, let's just take like 1 minute and just breathe. We'll just do a really quick meditation to kind of bring our minds back into the room. And just watch your breath, watch the sensation at the front of your nostrils as it gets cooler when you breathe in and warmer when you breathe out. You want your back as straight as possible. If you're in a chair, your feet flat on the floor. I won't get into anything more formal for the meditation posture. We'll just breathe. Okay, so we're talking this morning about women in Buddhism, and I'm going to start with something that's actually really personal. The very first time I heard the Heart Sutra, the Buddha's teaching on emptiness, it was a really profound experience for me. And I'm sorry to say it wasn't because I really understood the teaching, which I was way too ignorant to comprehend. It was because the sutra explicitly and in a very matter-of-fact way includes women as equal practitioners who can attain enlightenment. In this sutra, one of the Buddha's disciples, Shariputra, asks Chenrezig, he's the Buddha of compassion. There were a bunch of monks and holy beings there, and he asked Chenrezig how, quote, a son of the lineage should practice to understand emptiness or the perfection of wisdom. And Chenrezig replies, Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this. And then he goes on to expound the teaching on emptiness. In this one passage that goes all the way back to the time of the Buddha, 600 years before the Common Era, a door is opened wide to women in this tradition. And I have to tell you that I was practically in tears when I heard that. So humans haven't always remembered to open this door. But despite the obstacles that human culture and ignorance throw up, women have played significant roles in Buddhism over the centuries. So I'm going to start with somebody whom we encounter today, not as a flesh and blood human, but as a realized being, and that's Tara. So we see the image of Tara here, the green image, and of course we have 21 Taras here on our altar. So remember that all Buddhas don't begin as holy beings. They begin, like all the rest of us, as ordinary beings suffering in samsara, and they work their way into realization. So Tara is a Buddha who manifests in female form. She's very important in Geshe Gelug's lineage, and of course Geshe Gelug and Geshe Sangpo's teacher, Khensa Rinpoche, has advised us to recite green Tara mantras for the long lives of our teachers. And when he came here to consecrate the statues for us, he also mentioned that at Kadampa Center, we also have a very strong tie to Tara. We do Tara practice every month, and under Geshe-la's guidance, we invited the 21 Taras to our Gampa. And the 21 emanations of Tara represent her different enlightened activities, such as removing obstacles, especially to our spiritual development, or protecting us from fear, poverty, sickness, and so on. I kind of think of, I had a thought the other day that the 21 emanations of Tara, I don't mean to offend anybody here, but it's a little bit like in Christianity, you've got, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, who are all God, but they all represent different activities of God, and in a way, Tara is kind of like that. So hope I don't offend anyone, but it just struck me as a parallel idea. So there are a couple of legends, at least two legends that I'm aware of about who Tara was before she became enlightened. And Venerable Thubten Chodron tells the story in her book, How to Free Your Mind, which is about Tara. In one legend, she is said to have been born from Chenrezig's tear. And again, Chenrezig is the Bodhisattva, the Buddha of compassion. When he was a Bodhisattva, he was working hard to free all beings from the hell realms. But no sooner did he do so than they just filled right up again with beings whose karma caused them to be born there. And he began to weep from his compassion because there were just numberless beings who were still trapped in suffering. Tara arose from one of his tears, encouraged him not to despair, and promised to help him in his work to liberate all beings. Another story says that she was a princess named Yeshidawa who lived many eons ago and in a different universe. She developed great compassion and love for all beings and vowed to show the way to liberation to millions of beings each day, all day long. Because of this, she was called Arya Tara, or Palma Drolman in Tibetan. In English, it means noble liberator. Arya indicates that she has directly realized the nature of reality, and Tara shows her liberating activity. Because of her great achievements, the religious leaders of the time came to her and advised her to pray to be born as a male in her next life so she could get enlightened. But she refused. She vowed to become fully enlightened in a woman's body and to continuously return in female form in order to benefit others, in particular to benefit others who are existing in a female form. In one version of the story, she pointed out to the religious leaders that there are already many Buddhas in male form, so another male Buddha wasn't needed, while a female Buddha would be beneficial. And in another version, she reminded them that in emptiness, there is no male or female. Thus, beings born in either male or female bodies can become enlightened. So she's a great inspiration. She remains revered today by countless Buddhist practitioners. His Holiness the Dalai Lama often includes some Tara practice when he teaches in the West. In the current concern about the coronavirus, His Holiness has advised that it's beneficial to recite Tara mantras to benefit those who have contracted the virus. And so let's recite a mala of them now, and I've got to get my mala so I can count it. Sorry, used to sitting in a different part of the room. So the mantra rather than chanting it, let's start with just saying it for those who aren't familiar with it. So what we do when we're doing a whole mala of them is we'll recite 7 of them aloud, and then we'll do the rest of them silently. And I'll say the last one out loud so we can join back in. And remember, we're doing this for the benefit of those who are suffering from or in fear about the coronavirus. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture So Ha. The mantra is on the bottom of page 37 in the Gold Prayer Book if you wanted to follow that way. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture So Ha. 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 Thank you. Okay, so one of the earliest Buddhist women was the Buddha's aunt, Mahapajapati. Her sister was the Buddha's mother, and both of them were married to his father, the king. But the Buddha's mother died 7 days after he was born, and Mahapajapati raised him and took care of him. After the Buddha was enlightened, Mahapajapati became one of his disciples. And after her husband, his father, died, she went to the Buddha and requested to be ordained a nun, but the Buddha refused. And he went on to another town to teach. Well, she was determined, so she cut off her hair and put on saffron robes like the monks would wear, and followed him on foot to this other town, along with a host of other women from her Shakya lineage. Again, she requested ordination for herself and the other women. And again, the Buddha refused. Then Ananda, one of the Buddha's main disciples, met with her and discussed her desire to be ordained. And then he went to the Buddha on her behalf. So even in the Buddha's day, we had to have men speak for us sometimes. And he asked the Buddha, are women able to achieve all the stages of realization? And the Buddha said yes. So then Ananda suggested that it would be good if women could be ordained. And the Buddha agreed, and Mahapajapati became the first woman ordained as a Buddhist nun. I had the good fortune a few years ago, I was on pilgrimage in northern India to holy Buddhist sites with Venerable Robina, and we were passing by the place where this is said to have happened. So we stopped and saw it. There's nothing special to see, but it was really kind of nice to be in that place where that occurred. So I'm going to talk also about someone named Machig Labdran, who lived in the 11th century in Tibet during a great renaissance of Buddhism at that time. There are a lot of legends about miraculous events around her birth. And she's said to have been a reincarnation of a very close disciple of Padmasambhava, who was an 8th century Buddhist master from India and who introduced Tantric Buddhism to Tibet. She's also said to be, this is kind of magical stuff, but it was a magical time in Tibet. She was said to be not a reincarnation, but to have transferred the consciousness of a great meditator into her body at conception. So who knows? Anyway, she was a great practitioner even when she was very young. She was reciting mantras at the age of 3. And at the time, a lot of people in Tibet were illiterate, but they had professional readers, and she was a really fast reader. And this was something people would hire someone to come and read sutras in their home. And if you were a fast reader, you could read it over and over again, which was, in a given period of time, which was beneficial to the people in the home because they would hear the teaching over and over again. So she did a lot of that. And at first she didn't even understand what she was reading, but then she began to meet teachers who gave her instruction in the text that she was reading. And then she developed and became a great practitioner. She wrote a practice called the Chud, which is a very deep and difficult practice. It's designed to overcome our ego and cut our self-grasping. And in this practice, you actually imagine that you're cutting your own body up and offering it to other beings as food. This has to do with overcoming our attachment to ourselves and also developing the wish to be of benefit to others. But it's not an easy practice, and it's something you'd want to do with a lot of guidance. So as she continued to do practices and she began to teach, and she began to have many followers. Well, word about her made its way down to Bodh Gaya, which was the city in India where the Buddha was first enlightened. And there were religious leaders there who were getting a little bit worried hearing about her because they wanted to protect the lineage of teachings from the Buddha. They hadn't heard about her before. They heard about these kind of miraculous things she was doing, and they thought, well, maybe she's not really doing Buddhism. Maybe she's doing black magic. So they sent a bunch of very accomplished monks who knew their stuff up to check her out. And when they arrived, she said, "Great, come on in. I'm going to bring all my followers here so everybody can hear the debate and hear how I do. I've got translators who can translate everything so everyone will know what was going on." Everyone stayed at her house. She fed them all. And they had an extensive debate over several days, and the monks could not best her. So then she revealed things about her lifetime that could be checked out, and the Indians went and checked it all out, and now they approved of her. And they asked her actually to come to India, but she said no, her work was in Tibet. And so she stayed there and passed on the lineage of these different practices, including the Chod, that still exists today. So it can be kind of hard to see our commonality with a highly realized being like Tara, or someone who developed a practice like Machig Lapdran did, or someone who actually knew the Buddha directly. But there are a lot of women in the real world practicing today who can inspire us. One is Bhikshuni Thupten Chodron. She's an American Buddhist teacher, scholar, author, and leader, and she wrote that book about Tara that I cited earlier. She has written or edited more than 15 books on Buddhism, including 2 works that she co-authored with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Her journey as a Buddhist began when she attended a meditation course with Lama Yeshe in 1975 at the age of 25. Lama Yeshe is one of the co-founders of our mother organization. 2 years later, she ordained as a nun, and in 1986, she received full Bhikshuni ordination in Taiwan. Now, one of the issues for women in Buddhism, especially if you're interested in being ordained in Tibetan Buddhism, is that the lineage for full ordination for women has been broken. So women who ordain as Buddhist nuns, Tibetan Buddhist nuns, have to in order to get full ordination, they need to go to Taiwan or Hong Kong or Thailand or other places to get that full ordination. I can't explain any more of it than that because it's very complicated and detailed, but I do know that much. Anyway, as a teacher and writer, Bhikshuni Thupten Chodron emphasizes how the teachings have practical applications in our daily lives. Her books and online teachings are a wonderful resource that helps explain the teachings in a way that is accessible for Westerners. She's devoted a great deal of her life to supporting and encouraging Buddhist monastics and has worked to establish that Bhikshuni full lineage for Buddhist nuns. She understands, in particular because she is a Western nun, that life for Buddhist monastics is a lot harder in the West than it is in Asia. In Asia, this tradition has been going on for 2,600 years. People really understand the importance of the ordained Sangha and offer them a lot of support. And that's just not something that exists very powerfully here. So seeing the need for more support for Western Sangha, she established Sravasti Abbey, which is a monastic community in Washington State that in particular serves Westerners living in robes. The Abbey offers information and support for people who are considering ordination, as well as courses for ordained Westerners to help them understand and keep their vows. Venerable Kondo, one of our nuns here, has attended this course. She jokingly calls it Nun Reform School. And she's found it very helpful. So Bhikshuni Thupten Chodron continues to write, lead the Abbey, and teach all around the world. Another unique contemporary woman in Buddhism is Kadampa, who's very close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama and to FPMT's spiritual director, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Kadampa is something of a mystic and a seer rather than a scholar, although she does teach. She was born in Tibet, and from a very early age, she was led very much by dreams and visions, and she had a strong desire to serve meditators. So she would collect firewood and deliver water to meditators who were meditating in caves near her village. Later, she experienced a series of signs in her dreams that led her to do a pilgrimage to Mount Kailash. And the way that happened was she just actually got on a bus. From the dream, she knew she had to get on this bus, and she ended up the bus was going to Mount Kailash, which is the holiest mountain in Tibet. And so during that pilgrimage, she decided to leave Tibet for India. As you will know if you've heard any stories from Geshe Sangpo or others who have escaped Tibet, that the journey is very challenging and very difficult. You go on foot, you cross the Himalayas in the snow. She became very ill during this journey, both in Kathmandu, where they first landed up, and then later in Dharamsala, where she went wishing to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. She made many requests to see him and was always turned down, but then she began to meet and make friends with other high lamas who paved the way for her to meet His Holiness. And they, when she was finally able to meet him, she was so overcome with emotion that she fainted, and the guards carried her out, but His Holiness said, no, bring her back. And they formed a bond. But her health was still very bad, and she was sent to France for treatment, and that's where she met Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And she's become very close to him. She's written a long life prayer for him. When she's ill, she offers advice for his treatment and health. And she was very involved in his treatment when he manifested a stroke some years ago. So that's Kadampa. Another contemporary woman making a mark in Buddhism is Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo. She's well known through the book Cave in the Snow by Vicki McKenzie. This book describes her 12 years meditating in a cave in the Himalayan mountains. She was born in London and raised by her mother after her father died when she was 2. She became a Buddhist in her teens, and at the age of 20, she traveled to India to follow her spiritual path. She began working at a school for exiled Tibetan lamas, and one day they had a special guest, the 8th Kamtrul Rinpoche. She recognized him right away as her guru and asked him for permission to become a nun, and he agreed. So at the age of 21, when she'd only been in India for 3 months, she became one of the first Westerners to take robe in a Tibetan Buddhist lineage. She later received ordination from the 16th Karmapa, and again, because full ordination is not yet available for women in the Tibetan tradition, she traveled to Hong Kong in 1973 to receive the Bhikshuni ordination. So she's a little bit different from a lot of women today in that she did this really long meditation retreat, and this was under her teacher's direction. She spent 6 years in a small monastery during retreat, just during the winter months. And then she entered into this much deeper retreat that she did in a cave. It was about 2 hours away from the monastery. And she would, the monastery supported her. People would bring supplies for her, and she also grew some of her food that she would stock up. And then in the winter, she couldn't get out. She was snowed in, so she'd be there all winter long. And for the first 9 years, she occasionally traveled or accepted visitors, but the last 3 years, she was totally in retreat and not really communicating with other people. This retreat kind of fits in with the lineage of that's called, the yogi and yogini lineage of people doing this very intensive retreats. Her cave was really small, and inside the cave she built what's called a meditation box that's like 3 feet by 3 feet, and she sat upright in there all the time. She slept there, she meditated there. Obviously she had to get out every once in a while to see to her other needs, but that was basically how she lived her life. And so we'll talk about that again in a second. So when she finished that retreat, she went back to Europe and began to teach. Now her teacher had asked her several times to start a nunnery, and in 1999 she began that work. And she opened the Dongyu Gatsal Ling Nunnery in India in 2000. This was to provide an opportunity for nuns in her retreat in her lineage to study and develop their intellectual and spiritual potential. But one of the projects of the nunnery is to reestablish this yogini tradition, doing the kind of very deep, focused meditation practice over a really long period of time with very little contact with others. So this Drukpa Kagyu lineage was renowned in Tibet for the many men and women, yogis and yoginis, who followed this austere practice. But during the Cultural Revolution, when the Chinese destroyed so many monasteries, the lineage was largely broken. There were monks who escaped and got to India and continued the practice, but there weren't any nuns who had come out of Tibet doing that practice. So this was one of her goals in establishing this nunnery, was to support nuns in this practice that she herself had done on her own in the cave. So there are now several nuns who have done several years of retreat there, and others who are doing it, and they all have their little meditation boxes and are doing this very, very deep practice. And the whole idea behind doing this practice is to try to get enlightened in a single lifetime. So she is still the head of that nunnery, still doing some teaching and, again, supporting the reestablishment of this practice. Then if we go back farther in our modern era, we find Alexandra David Neal. She was one of the first Westerners to travel to Tibet with an interest in studying the Dharma, and her writings about her travels began to open the Western world to Tibetan Buddhism. She was born in Belgium in 1868 to politically radical parents, and by her early teens she was experimenting with the ascetic practices of Catholic saints, such as fasting, and she also got involved in feminist and anarchist groups. She became a Buddhist at age 21 and began to study languages to help her deepen her studies. So she was studying like Sanskrit and Tibetan. She pursued other interests as well. She was an opera singer for 9 years and traveled all around the world performing. But she left that, and she was still studying while she was doing that, and she left that career to study more in a more focused way. She spent 14 years traveling in India, Sikkim, where Geshe Gelik was born, and Tibet, visiting monasteries and meeting with great Buddhist leaders and teachers. She met with the 13th Dalai Lama, who at the time was in exile in West Bengal, and she also formed close ties with a young Lama, Afri Yongden, whom she adopted as her son, and they basically traveled and studied together for the rest of his life. In 1960, she traveled to Tashi Lunpo Monastery in southern Tibet, accompanied by Yongden. There she met with the Panchen Lama, who offered to let her stay there and study as his guest. Instead, she went back to Sikkim. Well, the fact that she kind of slipped into Tibet angered Christian missionaries in Sikkim who had been trying to get into Tibet for a long time. And so they put pressure on the British government, which was governing Sikkim at the time, and she got expelled. That didn't stop her, though. She couldn't go back to Europe at the time because it was they're in the middle of World War I. So she traveled to Japan and again back to China with Yongden. Once again, she went to Tibet, and she spent 3 years at Kumbum Monastery in the Amdo region. And with help from Yongden, she translated the Heart Sutra. Once again, she traveled to Lhasa, where foreigners were prohibited, and she disguised herself as a pilgrim. But eventually somebody figured out that she was a Westerner, a foreigner, and went to report her to the government. But by the time they went looking for her, she had actually already left on her own. When she returned to Europe, she published an account of her travels, My Journey to Lhasa. The book was met with skepticism by critics who thought her descriptions of practices such as levitation and tuma, which is a practice where you can actually generate body heat, which helps you if you're meditating in a cave in the Himalayan mountains. And they thought this stuff was all fabrications. As she traveled back to China and Tibet when she was 67, and she went into retreat there for 5 years. And she went back to Europe when she was 78 and remained there until her death at age 100 years. So she really had quite an exciting life. There are also prominent women in Buddhist lineages outside of Tibetan Buddhism. One of them is Roshi Joan Halifax, who is a Zen priest, teacher, and author. She founded the Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she serves there as abbot and head teacher. Her earlier education, she earned a PhD in medical anthropology and psychology, and she's combined that education with her grounding in Zen Buddhism to become kind of an activist and care for the dying as well as in social and political issues. So she's one of the people in the last 50 years or so, we've had kind of a renaissance in the way we think about dying people and caring for the dying, and she was very much, kind of a first person who was really hands-on, literally hands-on, who would hug people who were dying and really be with them in their suffering and supporting them in dying. She's very active and engaged Buddhism, including civil rights, anti-war, and other social and political activism. And just this past December, she was arrested during protesting about climate change. So she's like 80 years old. It's still going. And of course, within our own mother organization, the FPMT, there are many women serving as teachers. Venerable Rubina Curtin has many devoted students all around the world. In fact, again, on this same pilgrimage that I was with her on when we were in Bodh Gaya, we were at the great temple, and I saw this woman walking along, and she started to double take when she saw Venerable Rubina, and she ran up and kind of threw herself down and to show her devotion to her. She was an Indian woman. That's more of an Indian style than Western, but she was very devoted to her. Venerable Rubina has a really unique teaching style that many of us are familiar with. But it really brings the Dharma alive for students. She's a little bit scary, but she's also funny and compassionate. And she's going to be here, again, she's going to be here the first week in June, so don't miss that opportunity. For many years, Venerable Rubina edited Mandala magazine for FPMT. During that time, she received a letter from a prisoner who was looking for spiritual support. And from that, from receiving that letter with advice from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, she started the Liberation Prison Project, I think something like 20 years ago, and it's still going strong today. She led it for many years, and it's still going. She travels all around the world teaching nonstop. One time when she was here, I was driving her from one event to another, and I said, so what are you going to do next? And she began to rattle off her whole schedule for the entire year, where literally she would arrive in one place on a Monday, teach that night, teach all week long, fly out the next Monday morning, arrive in another place that afternoon, and teach all day long, teach the whole week. And she just rattled off her whole schedule for the whole year, nonstop teaching. I don't know how she does it. So she's really quite amazing. She's led multiple pilgrimages to Tibet and to holy sites in India and Nepal. And she's edited several of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's books. And in fact, along with her teaching, she's currently editing a new work. We've also been blessed with visits from Venerable Amy Miller. She wrote the Buddhism in a Nutshell book, which is the basis for a course that we teach here at Kadampa Center, and it's coming up in April?
Soon. Very soon.
Coming up in a couple weeks, or is that meditation? I should know this. I should know this. I'm the spiritual program coordinator, but I don't know what programs we're doing. Anyway, so Buddhism in a Nutshell is a really great 5-week overview. April? Yeah. 5-week overview that just kind of gives you an introduction to all the different important concepts in Buddhism. And another resident teacher in FPMT that we're all very fond of is Venerable Tendrin. She used to be SPC here at Kadampa Center, and now she teaches at Thupten Kunga Ling in Florida. So we've looked at a lot of real women who teach and practice Dharma, but I'm going to switch to looking at Buddhism in another way, kind of more of a conceptual way. So let's see a show of hands. How many people here today are women? Okay. How many of people here today believe that you've been a woman one time or another, whether in this life or previous life? And how many people in this room are mothers? How many think it's possible that you've been a mother in a previous lifetime? And how many of us have a mother, either still living or passed away? All right. Finally got a show of hands from everybody. So we all have an experience of woman in this lifetime, either as ourselves or from our mothers, friends, and partners, and so on. Mahayana Buddhism uses an ideal of female mother energy to help us develop our capacity for loving kindness and compassion. The goal in Mahayana Buddhism is not only to get our own selves out of the suffering of samsara, but to get enlightened so that we can help others with that. So that's called Bodhicitta, that ideal. And just this morning, a friend of mine sent me the perfect quote for our next little part of the section this morning. This is a quote from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I call on the next generation of young women to be the mothers of the revolution of compassion that this century so desperately needs. You have a special role to play in creating a better world. Women are more empathic and sensitive, more receptive to the feelings of others. These qualities make women models of humanity. Study history and you'll see that it's men who have been responsible for carnage and destruction. Well, let's take that one out because I don't want to trash the guys. I'm not saying that His Holiness is doing that, but we'll just pay attention to the idea of women as a concept, female energy as a concept of loving kindness and compassion. Many of us real life flesh and blood female beings do not always live up to that ideal. But we're just going to think a little bit about that as a concept. So there's a lot of complicated ideas about female energy, and for some people, our experiences with our mothers or others might make it kind of hard to see them as ideals of kindness. But let's put all that aside, and just for a few moments, we'll entertain the idea in the teachings that the energy of women is loving and compassionate. And we're going to do a little meditation that thinks about the kindness of our mothers, and we use that to generate the notion of bodhicitta. If you're new to this word, bodhicitta is an ideal in Mahayana Buddhism of wanting to be of the greatest possible benefit to others and wanting to get enlightened and to become a Buddha so that you can have all the wisdom and all the knowledge and all the tools that you need in order to really be able to help somebody. You might see someone who's really having a hard time and you really want to help them and you don't know how to do it. And the idea here is that when you become enlightened, you will know what needs to be done to help them. So let's just get ourselves in in a good meditation posture. If you're in a chair, you want your feet more or less flat on the floor. You can put a cushion under them if that helps you to support them. If you're on a cushion, you want to be sitting a little bit towards the front of the cushion to help you have your back straight, your legs are crossed. Your hands, you can have your right hand in the palm of your left hand and the thumbs touching. This is just to help you have a posture that you can sustain and be comfortable in. So there's nothing magical about it. If that's not going to be comfortable and you can't, sustain that posture, then don't worry about trying to keep it. And your head is maybe tilted a little bit forward. Your mouth is just very lightly closed. Your eyes are lightly closed or slightly open just to let a little bit of light in. And it helps sometimes to put the tip of your tongue on your palate right behind your teeth. If you're sitting still for a really long time, that helps to keep you from dribbling, which is a lot more comfortable. Okay, so this meditation is called The 6 Causes and 1 Result. And it explores six aspects of the kindness of others, our mothers, to develop that result, the attitude of bodhicitta. So the first is understanding all beings to be your mother. First, think of your own mother in this lifetime, and her mother, going back and back and back. Now imagine that you've lived numberless lives, stretching back into time, and not just as a human. These lifetimes have included birth in every kind of body: cats and horses, fish, turtles, ants, bluebirds, every kind of being. In each of these rebirths, we needed a mother to give us a body and to raise us. And we will need a mother for each future rebirth until we reach enlightenment. And because these lives are numberless, stretching back to beginningless time, every other being has at one time or another been your mother. And now we want to remember the kindness of all beings, our mothers. Our mother is very kind to us. She sacrifices her body to give us life. She provides food and care and protection when we're young and weak and unable to care for ourselves. She teaches us. Think how your mother provided that help and protection to you to the very best of her ability. Now extend your appreciation of her kindness to other friends and relatives who help and support you. How could you get along without their help? And now think of the kindness of people toward whom you have neutral feelings, complete strangers. Their kindness means you have roads to drive on, supplies in the stores, lights here in the Kadampa. The things they do have made your life better. How wonderful that is. And now let's stretch and cultivate a remembrance of kindness in the people we see as enemies. Try to see all of them, friend, stranger, and enemy, as your mothers who have been kind to you. So we want to repay that kindness. Because our mothers have been so kind, it's natural to want to repay that kindness. As young children, we might bring flowers or other treasures to our mother. As adults, we can offer other kindnesses. Maybe it's just picking up the phone and calling her, taking care of her as she grows older, telling her we appreciate her. And as adults, we can look at our mothers and see that they suffer from the afflictions of samsaric existence. They have fear, illness, unhappiness. And because of our mother's kindness to us, we want to fix that. We want to end that fear and unhappiness. Just as we wouldn't abandon them if they were drowning or burning in a fire, so we can't abandon them to the suffering of samsara. Now consider how living beings suffer from hunger, poverty, war. Think of Afghanistan and Syria. Illness. We have the coronavirus, cancer. Mental afflictions, whether it's anxiety, addiction, jealousy, and death. Everyone faces death. And think how you wish for those beings to be happy. Now bring to mind various kinds of happiness and offer it to them. The sight of spring flowers offering an end to winter. A delicious meal. Rest when they're tired. The joy of dancing with abandonment to good music. All kinds of happiness. Now wishing all sentient beings to be free from suffering or developing compassion. First, consider your own suffering, mental and physical, in specific terms, and feel some compassion for yourself. You don't want to suffer. Think how much you want to be free of that suffering. Oh my gosh. Take it from me. Now extend that wish to your friends and family. And for the people you know, remember in specific terms the ways that you're aware of that they suffer. How much you wish you could take that suffering away from them. How much you want them to be free from that. Now extend the thought even further out and think about the suffering of strangers, victims of war, workers displaced by changing economies, people suffering from the coronavirus and other diseases. People whose homes were destroyed in the Tennessee tornado or other natural disasters. Again, think how much you don't want them to suffer. And now take that wish that's getting so strong and stretch again, stretch your heart, and think of someone you dislike. Think how he or she suffers from the same anxieties and pressures that you do. And make the wish that he or she not suffer. Now we'll take the responsibility to relieve all sentient beings from their suffering. So if you filled your heart with love and compassion for all these dear beings, and think how good it would be if they were happy and free from suffering. What a different world it would be. Not only would it be good if all these beings were happy and free from suffering, it's urgently important to make that happen. It's so important, in fact, that you can't leave it up to others to make it happen. If you saw a toddler fall into a lake, you wouldn't keep walking and assume someone else would pull her out. You'd rush into the water and save her. In the same way, think all these suffering beings need to be rescued. I will be the one to do it. Think, I need to become enlightened so that I will have the wisdom and all the tools I need to free every last being from suffering and bring them happiness. Okay, now come back to the room. Okay, now we'll dedicate. So we want to go to page 246 in the gold prayer book, and in the white binder it's the dedication prayers. And we'll read from Master Shantideva. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Then on page 244 and 245, we'll say the long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for Khensa Rinpoche, and for Lama Zopa Rinpoche. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. The one who mastered his speech at a very young age, the one with great patience who received the name Avatari, the one with great precision who spread the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa on bliss and void, Lama, ornament of the yellow hat tradition, please remain until samsara ends. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And now 7 green Tara mantras. Om Tare Tu Re So Ha. 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 Thank you all.